everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. We're so excited today for this very special episode. We are talking the Hallmark Hall of Fame's latest entry in this historic franchise. We're talking Love Takes Flight, and I'm Rachel, and I thought it would be great to bring a very special guest. This is now her third time on our program. We're having Alysa from Best Forever's podcast is here.
Hi, I can't believe I've been back 3 times. This is amazing that you keep asking me. Thank you.
Well, yeah, you're reaching this is perfect because it's like a Hall of Fame guest.
Yeah.
We've only ever had 2 other people aside from our regular co-hosts who come back regularly.
Yes.
We've only ever had 2 other people that have been guests 3 times because we've had Catherine Disher.
Yes.
Who was the voice of Mystique and Jean Grey. And is all the good witch and is amazing. And then we had Nina Weinman, who was our first guest that we ever had, who's also been on 3 times. So you are in very esteemed company.
I'm so excited. I feel way more important than I actually am.
No, you're very, very important. But whenever we have Alysa on, it's just a good reminder to us of like important things that actually matter, like relationships and friendships.
I love it. Yes.
Yes.
And I think what's really critical here is like, yes, we can focus on relationships, but I also enjoy watching these movies and see how they approach friendship, because in my mind, most often friendship is secondary.
Yeah.
But when you see storylines that get at some friendship, which I think did exist here in very different ways, that was really exciting. So yeah. I love to come on and say, I think romantic relationships are important, but friendship is too.
Yeah, right, exactly. Why don't you, just for the people who haven't seen your 2 other podcasts, which you should, yes. Why don't you just remind everybody what you do on your podcast and in your career and everything?
Yes, I started Best Forever's, a podcast for kindred spirits, in September 2017 as a way to communicate some of the things that I do in my profession. I am a college professor, and I focus on friendships and relationships specifically, and talking about how we can be effective in those relationships, how we can handle some problems, how we can celebrate them. And I just felt like friendship was something we needed to talk about more. So I started the podcast to do that. And so Best Forever's is all about that. Let's celebrate friendships. Let's work through the issues, and just know that we should be thinking about and working on relationships that mean the most, including friendships.
Yeah, I really, really enjoy what you do. And that's something that's been, I guess I haven't been all that lucky in love, despite having Hallmarkies podcast.
Yeah.
And so for me, the themes of friendship really ring true for sure.
Well, same, like I'm not married, I'm 40, I got 2 cats, very classic, like single lady. But friendship has always been important for me. And sometimes I think because I've always focused on friendship, maybe in some ways I've put romantic relationships secondary. I don't know. That's a topic for another podcast. What's wrong with Alysa? No, just kidding.
That's a whole nother very interesting spiral downward, I think.
Exactly. Let's keep it on the up. Let's keep it positive.
So, last time you were on the podcast, we had so much fun talking about the epicness of the cookie crawl.
Yes. Oh, the cookie crawl. Amazing. The gingerbread houses, cookie crawl. It was so exciting.
And what was so interesting about that podcast is I normally try to keep it around an hour for the podcast. But that one, I was just, I don't know what my mood was. We were just having so much fun. And I was just like, forget it. We're just going to have it go as long as it's supposed to go. And it was over an hour and a half, I think it was. It was really long. And you know what? It was one of the, had some of the best ratings and listens of the whole Christmas season.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it might have come down to the cookie crawl.
I think so.
But I also remember that too, like, because you're 2 hours behind me in time, and I felt like we started late. I don't think I went to bed until after midnight my time that night. Yeah. It was just like, we were just chatting away, which, it was super fun, and y'all are great, and I'm so glad that I can be on your podcast and back. But I do think it is important to remind people, and I try to make this reminder each time I'm on, that my life has drawn me more to the Lifetime movies than Hallmark, but I do watch Hallmark movies most likely with my mother. So I have a little bit like the light side, which is Hallmark, and Lifetime obviously goes very dark. And that I think is representative of what I study and what, all the things that I do is both light and dark.
Yeah. Yeah. They just had an ad, I guess, Lifetime is doing a Pride and Prejudice Atlanta in June. It's going to be interesting.
Nice.
Are you familiar at all with the Hallmark Hall of Fame sort of versus the regular Hallmark?
No, but I was wondering as I was watching it if it's Hall of Fame because perhaps the people who were in it, like the actresses and actors, but no, I actually don't know.
Yeah.
But so pull me on the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Yes. So the Hallmark Hall of Fame is actually I think the longest running serialized program. Okay. It has been going on since I think like the 60s, like forever, long time. There's over 200 entries in the Hallmark Hall of Fame, and it's switched over from various networks for a long time. Like there were even at one point radio programs that were at the Hallmark Hall of Fame. Wow. That were sponsored. So this goes way, way back. And they have always been kind of more on, for the most part, been on sort of the inspirational side. And they usually had sort of a feature film worthy budget of some kind, like maybe where the normal Hallmark movies would maybe be $1 million budget. These would have like $3 to $5 million budgets.
Okay.
But then ever since it became part of Hallmark Channel, they tend to be like at least the last kind of 6, I would say, have been more just sort of more budgeted versions of what we typically get with Hallmark. Okay. And this one, the cast actually was fairly standard. I mean, they're amazing, but it's just as far as they work in Hallmark all the time. There wasn't any
they looked really familiar. That's why I was like, is this the Hall of Fame? Like these are like the Susan Lucci's of Hall of Fame or like of Hallmark.
The biggest difference that in this one that you could tell was there was definitely more of a music budget. That was the biggest difference I could tell in this one, because they actually had Heart and Soul that they paid for, and they actually had What the World Needs Now. There
was also another song where I was like, this is a remake of some jam from like when I was an undergrad, and I couldn't place it, and I forgot to Google it, but I was like, is this a Coldplay song?
And I would say the cinematography, it's just like on a slightly better level, but they definitely have become more similar to, and I would love for them to change that. Yeah. But they've had in just the last few, probably the Christmas Train, like 2 years ago, it had Danny Glover, it had Joan Cusack, it had, it wasn't my favorite, but
Joan Cusack. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, she's amazing, Joan Cusack, but it wasn't my favorite movie. But anyway, they kind of puff up the budget a little bit for Hallmark Hall of Fame, and Hallmark Hall of Fame, it's one of the only programs on television that I actually like watching the television commercials. I don't know if you just fast forward them all or if you watch.
No, I don't have DVR.
Oh, good.
So I actually don't use my cable very often because I use Hulu, Netflix, etc.
Yeah.
So, but when I do watch Lifetime or Hallmark, channels like that, that's what I use my cable for. And one of the things that I said to my mom, who hasn't yet watched this movie, and I was telling her about it, I said, one of my favorite parts were the commercials. I was like, I need tissue for the commercials. They were so good.
Yeah. Yeah. The one about motherhood was amazing. And then the Mr. Rogers one,
oh gosh,
I just died. It was so good. It was
about the young, the boy who is, young man who was in the wheelchair, and like that whole journey from like going to from his home with his friends to the concert, and then getting like to sort of, what do they call it? Oh my gosh, you can tell I've never been in like that part of the stage where you do like the crowd surfing,
the mosh pitting thing.
Yeah, they did the crowd surfing with him, and I was just like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was.
I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, the commercials were great.
Yeah. They're really, really good. Yeah, and that's a tradition that goes way back to is Hallmark having these super sad. And I think that's kind of where you got the whole sort of the commercials are sadder than the actual program. So you need the tissues. Was for people watching Hallmark Hall of Fame. And so this one, what were your overall thoughts about this movie? I thought it was really sweet. It's not the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life, but I just walked away being like, that was a very sweet little movie, in my opinion.
I overall enjoyed it. When you talked about like what do you call it? The budget, like there was like the storm in it, and that seemed central to the storyline.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite parts about it was actually the friendship between Walter and Quinn. And so Walter was, is it Charlie?
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie's a father. So Charlie was the pilot that was hired by Lizzie to make the dramatic flight to get the kidney that was needed for a very important surgery through a very dangerous storm. But so Walter was his dad, and they've lost the mother, like the mother has passed away, and Quinn is Lizzie's daughter. I don't know age, like I have no concept for age of children. So I'm assuming like 3rd grade. I don't know. But she, I think that was what was really cool. You don't often see friendships among people who are different generations.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really cool. And I liked also that it focused on her Lizzie has like she admins a smaller hospital, and then to have this like really progressive surgery to take place when that's something that's likely to occur in a really high tech and, type of hospital, and it focusing on how she can help people. Like there was like a really sweet, I don't want to say agenda, but her plan in life was to get people that could like stay with their loved ones when they were having different transplant surgeries. Yeah. And like, I thought that was really cool. So overall, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just a very sweet little movie, in my opinion. Yeah. And it's all about this, the synopsis starts.
Yeah. Sorry, divorce. I might have given a little bit too much away.
No, you did. You did great. No, but so divorced single mom Lizzie Bowman is an expert at juggling the demands of her busy life between raising her 5-year-old daughter. Five.
That is not 3rd grade. That's kindergarten. I don't know.
I don't know either. I always get those wrong too. And her job as administrator of the town's hospital. Lizzie is working at max capacity. So that's one thing I wondered. So Nikki DeLoach plays the single mom here, Lizzie, and I interviewed her last week, and so definitely I'll put a link down. You guys should, if you haven't listened to it, you should check it out. She was incredible, and I think she's a pretty good actress.
Yes.
But how do you think that they did as far as portraying her as the single mom? Is her performance, the script, all of that stuff? How did you think they did with her character?
I liked her. Like I thought she looked really familiar to begin with. Again, going back to Hall of Fame, I was like, maybe this actress is a Hall of Fame actress. So I immediately went and followed her on Twitter while I was watching the movie and could see her like interacting with people, and that was really cool. My one thought about her portrayal, like I like that she moved from being an OB to doing admin so she could spend more time with her daughter, which I think is something that not everyone might have the luxury of doing if they're a single parent and they have a small child. And so she's still able to have an impact in the working world in a really neat way. But then she's also able to sort of have more of like a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 6 sort of job However, I felt she was always just like rolling in. Like I was like, do you not have to be there at a certain time? And
Yeah.
I don't know if it was an assistant or a nurse, but she's always like, you got this covered, or I'm going to go over here and you can take care of it. And I was like, so she has to work longer than you do? Like, I don't know. There are some things where the time of what she needed to do as an admin did not make sense, right? So she's just leaving work to go chit chat with the pilot at his house. And I was like, call him in and meet him in your office. But I realized that's not how you create relationships per se. But that was my only thought. I was like, man, she can really just do whatever she wants. And I would think that even in admin work, that working at a hospital would be very time consuming and be very strict on time. What did you think
Right.
about her
You know,
role?
that is very true. I thought there were some weird moments with her, like why she wouldn't want to be there for her sister. Like
Yeah.
I get that you want another doctor, you know, to be in charge and a good doctor, but like I don't know. I thought there was some like odd moments. Like if your sister needs support, you're a doctor. Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to be like. I'm sure any doctor would be more than happy to have another doctor there,
Yeah.
you know, supporting his patient. Like that's not. I don't know. That was weird to me. Also, I think the movie could have done a little bit better in portraying her as a lonely person. Like her daughter is so worried about her, but I never really felt that she was that lonely. I mean, not everybody has a ton of friends. Some people, sometimes some people, their kids are their friends, and that's it, you know, and they're fine. That's really, honestly, I think my mom's never been somebody that had like, you know, a gaggle of friends.
Yeah.
She's always been somebody that's just been more happy with her her siblings and her kids and her husband, and that's all that, you know, she kind of needs. And so I don't know, I think they could have maybe done a little bit better of maybe portraying that. I think of, you know, movies where you just get this such a sense of this person's loneliness. And I don't know, the first one to come to mind is in the romantic comedy While You Were Sleeping. Like it's just so clear how lonely Sandra Bullock's character is. And she misses her father, and she misses her, you know, she just has nobody. And so when she gets this this family in her life, it's just a dream come true for her. And I think that could have been maybe done a little better.
You know, that is an excellent point. And I think that's sort of, and While You Were Sleeping, why it might have gone to the point where they thought that she was their son's partner, was that she was so desperate to have the connections that she didn't have the heart to say that she wasn't in a relationship with them. Like she kind of like went along with it. And that's an excellent point, because the daughter is always like, you need friends and you need this. And she's just like, I'm good. She didn't even like, she seemed to be fine with their sister, but they didn't even seem to do that much either. And I think that's a really good point. Like, we don't capture loneliness very well, because there is a difference between being lonely and being alone. And so if she had been in a relationship, you can still be lonely, but I still don't think we capture that very well in media. And to me, loneliness is something that is really detrimental to our overall well-being and our ability to have relationships and be successful in new relationships. And so it's almost as if when you're lonely, for example, you might have more challenges in making connections with new people, because that's something that's so overwhelming. But she didn't seem to be concerned about it. And I don't know if a 5-year-old has the wherewithal to be like, my mom's really lonely, versus like someone who's in college, like, my mom never goes out and I want her to be happy and I hope she meets someone. Like, I think that's a completely different scenario. And that it would have to be really clear for a 5-year-old to pick up on the fact that she needs friends. I mean, because it didn't feel like Quinn didn't have friends, and her mom seemed worried about that too. And I was like, well, yeah, if you don't show them with friends on the show, then they don't have friends. But it's like, we didn't see any interactions with Quinn
and other kids.
With other kids. So like, it was just like the mom was really concerned about that. And I also, although I enjoyed the friendship with Walter, because I don't think we look at I think with friendships and relationships, we're always so concerned about age. And it's not saying like Walter and Quinn are going to be like besties forever or BFFs, but they can have connections that are really important to have. But we're always concerned like, no, you need to just be friends with people who are your age.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, age doesn't make a difference in friendship,
Right.
more like how you get along. But I just think that it was interesting, like you met Walter in the grocery store at the cereal aisle, and he was getting oatmeal. And then I don't know if it was the next day or later that day, they ran into him at the coffee shop. Then it's like, let's have a tea party. And I was like, you're just going to go over to this guy's house? Like, you're going to take your 5-year, like, at least she was going, but I'm still like, I don't know if I just be like, yeah, let's do this thing. I don't know you. Let's hang out somewhere that's not public. Yeah, I thought that was a little strange. But.
Yeah. So, but this little girl, I
Yeah.
mean, Hallmark always does a great job with their casting of children, but this Skylar Olivia
Cute.
Flanagan is her name. She was so cute. I thought that she was one of the most adorable child actors I've seen in a long time. She did a great job.
I agree. Like, and I don't know if it's like, because sometimes it's just like the missing teeth with kids is just like super adorable. So that might have been part of it. But yeah, I thought she did a really good job and was really overall sweet. Like, and that's why I'm like, I don't think she would pick up on some of the things that they were saying that she would pick on, especially since she was 5 and not in the 3rd grade.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So she makes this book that she's on a mission to find a friend, and her mom is obviously very concerned about this, and does she have friends and everything like that. And I think that, you know, you have to be really careful. I mean, it's hard for me to give parenting advice as a single woman, but you have to be really careful with kids that you don't create these sort of toxic situations where a child is worrying too much about a parent.
Yeah.
And that they're not, that they, I don't know, that it doesn't become something that a parent is placing their burdens on a child, and you know, kind of a thing. Like, they shouldn't have to deal with those kind of things as far as divorce, and it's hard enough for a child. So you know, you have to be pretty careful. And I think it was fine here, but you know, if I think it definitely is a pretty. You might want to bring some counseling involved with her making this book, I think.
Yeah, and I had a couple thoughts about that. One, I agree with you about children and with divorce. And I know in my field and my discipline of communication, there is a family researcher. Her name is Tammy Afifi, and some of her earlier work is about how children can feel caught between parents because of having too much information about what's going on in the divorce versus what's going on like parent-child. And so it can be just really problematic, especially if she knows what's going on with her dad, who doesn't seem to be around a lot, those kinds of things. My other thought was, oh gosh, did I just lose it to, if she's concerned about whether or not her daughter has friends, I would think one of the first things I would do is talk to a teacher to see what she's like at school. Now she's in kindergarten, so maybe that's a little different. Again, 2 non-parents here.
Yeah.
But the other thing would be, besides piano, which is a very individual-based activity, what else does she do? Is she in an art class? Does she do ballet? Is she on a soccer team? Where there might be interaction with other people of her age. And so doing things that she might enjoy doing, or she can learn more about what she enjoys to do. And it's not saying like you put a 5-year-old on a soccer team that they're going to be on the U.S. Women's World Cup winning team 20 years later. Yeah. However, I think that is a lot of where we build some relationships and learn how to interact with people our age. You know, besides school, it might be in church, it might be like in a Bible study class. You know, there might be just like lots of different ways to do it. And it didn't seem like there was much going on other than Quinn being in the daycare at the hospital. Like,
yeah.
What else do you do
I wondered about that too. That, you know, if she, even if it was just some cousins or
Yeah.
just some, you know, I don't know, just find some people that she can, some other kids, a play
Yeah.
date kind of a thing that she can do. And you just want to make sure that there's innocent worries of childhood, and then there's sort of where it gets into the more sort of damaging kind of
Yeah.
area where they're worrying too much and feel like they are somehow responsible or they're
Yeah.
somehow involved, then you might want to consider getting some kind of counseling
Yeah.
involved, I would say.
For
But she
sure.
first she thinks that this is all about her finding a friend, and then of course she finds out that it's actually about her wanting a friend for her mom,
Yeah.
and that her mom is lonely. And so I think the idea behind the movie is that the reason why Quinn feels this way is that Lizzie has segmented her life into these blocks. And that's
Yeah.
sort of a theme of the movie, is that she's
Yep.
got like her work stuff, she's got her family stuff, she's got her, you know, stuff with the ex-husband, all the different parts of her life, all in these kind of blocks, and they don't really intermingle
Yeah.
well. And so she probably has friends at work, but because she's separated it all out, then Quinn probably doesn't even realize that she has those friends.
I don't understand why they didn't pick up on the one. I'm forgetting what her name is, but she's the primary connecting point in the workplace to Lizzie.
Uh-huh.
The lady with the curly hair. I forget what her name is, but like
Yeah.
they seem to have a great relationship. Sounds like a friendship to me, but
Yeah, but I think she doesn't have people from work like over at the house or
yeah.
something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's kind of where the problem is. She's just over segmenting her life, which is easy to do. And
Mm-hmm.
it's easy. I mean, I can only imagine with kids it's even easier because you got like other kids stuff,
Yeah.
the you know, the relationship stuff, the, you know, all kind of thing to try to keep it all from meshing too much. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a point where it probably doesn't become very functional.
Yeah.
And especially with a career like a doctor where you're so immersed in work.
Mm-hmm.
But so yes, like you said, they end up meeting this widower, Walter, at the grocery store. And he was played by Tom Thon, I guess I say. Anyway, and he was a delight. He
I
was so
loved him. Walter was my favorite, I think.
yeah, he was so sweet, and there was a nice little chemistry between him and Quinn. It was very
Mhm.
cute.
I think sometimes it can be difficult to see that chemistry between older actors and children, but I thought it seemed like even though it was like, okay, all you've done is see him in the aisle of cereal at the grocery store and at the coffee shop, and you're willing to bring them together. Even then, I was like, that seems a little strange. However, they do get along really well.
Yeah.
And it was Quinn who breaks them out, sort of like, okay, of everyone on that show, the one who has loneliness captured the most would be Walter, who is his wife has passed away in the previous year. And he
Yeah.
seems to not be over that and, having a difficult time. And it's probably other people who could help bring him out of that. But he's almost segmented everyone else out of his life and
Yeah.
dealing with anything like the bills because his wife did the bills. And I think that in some ways Lizzie and Walter then are meant to be parallel in some way. However, I think based on our previous discussion, Walter's loneliness was captured way better than I still don't know if Lizzie is lonely or not.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all these said. And I think that we sometimes are too focused on kids being with people their own age. Certainly they are all day at school. And one of the things they actually have shown with with homeschooling kids is that they can't, people think, oh no, they're socially backward or whatever. That's just bad homeschooling kids. But when it's done right, it can actually be really helpful because they are interacting more with people of all different ages. They're not just with people their own age, and that can actually be really socially beneficial to kids. And so I really liked this little friendship, and I think you have Lifetime too much on your hands. Yes, I think I mean,
And
it's
I was like, you're just gonna go over to Walter's house? Like, that's like my first thought. And then you get there and the house is gorgeous.
Yeah, this is like becoming friends with Santa Claus. I mean, Walter's not going to burn a fly.
I mean, but that might be where I'm like, I'm not inviting anyone over to my house that I don't know, and I'm not walking into anyone's house that I don't know. So that might just be too much lifetime, but I'm also 40. So it's like, I'm set in my ways. Maybe my life is too segmented like Lizzie.
Yeah. I mean, it probably is somewhat unlikely these days. There also was no social media really of any kind in this movie. Nobody was really using their cell phones much, or I don't know. So that's a whole element of friendship that this movie just kind of, modern day friendship, that this movie kind of just ignores.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't know, like I think what maybe makes it work is that he had particularly decided that he was going to be more proactive.
Yeah.
And so if you were more proactive and you kind of felt, I don't know, for lack of a better word, sort of the spirit calling you to like help these people, then maybe you might do something like this. I did.
Yeah. Well, I think, him being all like Walter being out at the coffee shop and interacting with them at the grocery store and that sort of thing, I think was him trying to get more out there. But he definitely, for me, he was the one who needed friends the most, or relationships to kind of pull him out. But I think my favorite part was in one of the opening scenes when Quinn sees him and she's like, "Hey, old man." And I was like, that's great. He kind of took that as like, she's was like, young, little girl, and like, let's play off of that. And I think that when he saw her at the coffee shop, he was like, "Hey, young girl." And I was like, oh, I love a good running joke.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think I actually am more forward probably about things like this than most people.
Yeah.
And I'm always doing things that people are like, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you. And the one that kind of comes to my mind is, I'll frequently will meet people at movie screenings, like where we're sitting at line waiting, and obviously we have a common interest. We're both there. We're both, and you're sitting waiting. So you just start talking to people. And one in particular I can think about is this was last year. I was going to a concert actually, and I'm part of this theater group. Mm-hmm. And somebody posted on the theater group in Facebook, is anybody going to the concert? Do you want to meet up or whatever? And I was like, sure. It ended up being, why not? Yeah, it ended up being me and just this random person from this Facebook group. We had a lovely dinner and it was great. And I think some people would be maybe really uncomfortable with that because it's just, what do you do? But I don't know. I've actually made some really good friends. Another one like that is at a movie screening. It was actually a really terrible movie, but we had to, as part of the thing, we had to take a picture with, it said, the movie called The Space Between Us, which it really was a terrible movie, but we had to I think it was like a poster where we had to write what we were grateful for about the earth. So we wrote it down and then we took a picture. And so I had this person next to me that we chatted with and talked with a little bit while we were waiting. And I got her Facebook or whatever because she wanted to copy the picture. Right.
Yeah.
And anyway, just from that little interaction, we ended up becoming pretty good friends. And she's been over to my house a number of times. We've done a number of things together. We become pretty good friends. And so, I don't know, sometimes I think there's still a possibility in this day and age for these kind of, I don't know, little miracles where you just meet somebody in the most random way and, there you go. You end up becoming friends.
I agree with it. Like, I think that the lifetime person in me would say, if you feel uncomfortable, you might want to trust your gut in some situation. Yeah. Besides that, though, like, I have met or invited people who, like, we've been in, like, a Facebook group together, too, and it'd be for a particular podcast, and we're going to a live podcast showing for a different podcast, and I'm going with some friends, and they didn't have anyone to go with, and I was like, you come with us. Like, we'll meet you
Yeah.
there, you know, we'll hang out. And like, yeah, we're Facebook friends. We're on Instagram. I feel like we frequently interact on Facebook and that sort of stuff. So I think that, you know, and part of me is like, I know it's so difficult to make friends that I try for myself, but I also know that I am sort of wealthy in friendship is the way that I describe it. But I also know that there's times when I have not been, or that you have some difficult times in friendship. And so making a new connection is really important. So when someone is trying to make that connection, I try to sort of lean into that,
Yeah.
because I would hope for the same, you know, and that has been the case. It's amazing what having even one little thing in common, like, and it's not even little, because like movies for you is
Oh
big,
yeah. Yeah.
right? You know, and so but it's one of those things that's all it might take, is going to a screening together or sitting through a bad movie together. You can be bonded for life. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that people who are closed off from that are not going to make those connections, and sometimes they might wonder why. And it might be because, like Lizzie, and in some cases like Walter, they are so closed off. And I think we all do that sometimes. Like, sometimes it's just like, you know, that's not going to happen this month. Like this
Yeah.
month, you know, I was telling Rachel beforehand, I'm like, you know, I'm grading for finals, like what time are, like, my brain is not there. So to like try to make some connection, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me. But see me after Thursday when my grades are in, and
Yeah.
it's great, you know. So sometimes I think we're not always, might not be open to it or ready for it. But I think we do need to be open to it, because if the only way to make relationships now is online, like that can be really difficult. But there's so many other ways to do it, right? Like you said, you're
Yeah.
in a theater group, you're
Yeah.
in this sort, like there's so many ways to make friendships, but sometimes we have to go out on a limb and go to that, well, I mean, I'm not going, but like go to a yoga class. I'm more
Yeah.
indoorsy. Like I might go for a walk in my house on my stairs, but that's about it. But you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, but if you're into yoga and you want to make connections, you might have to go to a yoga class by yourself. And I know for a lot of people that is really difficult, but I think if people can do it, like, you know, Lizzie is so shut off that like all she does is go to work, then, you know, if you don't ever put yourself out there. So I guess when she went to go see Charlie at his house, maybe that was her putting it out there. But
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's sort of two things going on here. First,
yeah,
not everybody needs it. And so if you don't
exactly.
need it,
Thank you.
then you're fine. And,
Exactly.
you know, that's fine. Like my mom just doesn't have a whole lot of friends and she's fine.
Yes.
She's fine with it and that's fine. But if that's something you want
Yes.
in your life, if that's something, then I totally agree with you that just like the smallest thing you can build a friendship on. Like dating is a whole nother thing because
Yep.
that's different. But as far as a friendship, like it can be the most ridiculous thing. Like you both like watching Survivor, for instance.
Yes.
I've made so many friends based on watching Survivor and watching Hallmark movies. I've made lots of friends through that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times if you can just think of one thing that the other person has in common, then you can it can be less intimidating to start that conversation. Even if you're just complimenting them on something they're wearing, that can kind of break the ice. You're like, oh, I like your orange shirt. Orange, that's a cool color or whatever. Cool earrings. I don't know. And then you can start talking, and most people are really nice people, and most people are, and so, you know, you just have to let go of some of those fears if that's something that you want. If you don't care and you're not something you want, then that's fine. Then be happy with your life.
I think that's an excellent point. Like, I think that I was sort of proceeding with the idea of like Walter and Lizzie here, where like for me, Walter seemed like he needed it or wanted it. Lizzie still, you know, the jury's out on that. But yeah, for some people, having one really great friend is all they need. For someone else, it might be having a large group of like 15 to 20 friends. Like, it's what works for you. But I think no matter what, every single person needs some sort of connection, whether it be being friends with their parents or,
Yeah.
with a coworker or a neighbor or someone from church or something, someone on Facebook. I think we all need, like, it's an inherent human need to have connections, but we don't all have to have the same connections and the same amount of connections.
Right.
One of the things that you said, most people are nice. And if some people aren't into it, don't take it personally, because they might just be not ready for it at that time, or they might be all set with their one friend or their 15 friends. And so it's kind of like, it is dating in that aspect where it's kind of like, we'll move on to the next.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that sometimes I've had people in my life where I'm like, we should be friends. We have so much in common. We like so many of the same things. We have such similar personalities. And yet it doesn't work for whatever reason. It's just a timing thing. It's a chemistry thing, even though you think you should have chemistry with this person. And it's not personal. It's just, it's just the thing that happens sometimes. And then I've had people where I'm like, why am I friends with this human? Like, we have nothing in common. And yet it just works for some reason. So I don't know. Just, I would say try to be open and try to be the kind of person that you would want to be friends with. Try to not be judgmental, try to look at the good in people. And usually in a friendship, like, I feel like most of the time you're going to feel like you're giving more into the friendship than the other person is. Mm-hmm. But whether that's accurate or not, I feel like that's almost the best way. Like, you should, not that you don't want to have high maintenance, burdensome friends, because that can be toxic. Yeah. But I do think that you shouldn't be looking like, what is this person giving to me? What are they adding to my life? Like, it should be, I'm so grateful for this friend, and that having, I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I think, it shouldn't always be like, well, they're not giving me exactly what I need at this given moment, so why am I even friends with them? There's an ebb and flow. And in some cases you might not see a friend for 3 months, but it's not anything about the friendship. It could just be about other things that are going on. Maybe you're at a distance. I have a friend who's about to give birth, so I don't take any offense to not hearing from her from like a month before until 2 months after. Like, I'll contact her and I can't wait for the baby to arrive and that sort of thing. But if she isn't like, hey, Alysa, how you doing today? I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, we're not, like, sometimes it's like, we have to think about those things. Right. But also at the same time, if you are constantly giving in your time and attention and support, and you're never getting anything back, like the friend I'm talking about, I've been friends with her for 15 years. Right.
Yeah.
But if this is someone you've been with friends for 5 months and it's only about whether or not you can drive them somewhere or do favors for them, you might rethink it, or maybe you might go, she's, that's a good relationship to catch up on Survivor, once a week on text, or, someone to go to coffee with. It doesn't mean we have to be everything to everyone. Right.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. And so what did you think of this wildlife commitment faux pilot guy? Charlie.
Well, first off, I would say I thought he was very handsome, if I'm allowed to say that.
Was very dishy. I completely agree with you. He was very, very handsome.
He has the look. Like, I think he looks like, like, okay, I get the pilot life from him. But I felt like from the beginning, he was just constantly going rogue in situations you do not go rogue in. Like, he's trying to dictate the interview to the woman who's interviewing him. And I was like, like, you wait till you get hired and the person to kind of play that, like, charming, like, you just need to calm down. And I was like, So at the beginning, I was like, I don't like him. And it's not even like a bad boy thing. It was sort of like you don't respect any boundaries.
No, it's not that he was a bad boy by normal standards. He's totally is a bad boy by Hallmark standards. Totally. He's he's got like the leather jacket.
sorry.
Getting...
That was a weird laugh because I had just taken a sip of water and I didn't want to spit it out. So if you are listening right now and it sounded like a muted machine gun, that was me trying not to spit up my water. But But yes, he is bad boy with a Hallmark heart of gold.
Yeah, that's right. He doesn't get along with his dad, and he moves every 6 months or whatever. The interview scene, I would have. I mean, there's no way. Like that, it's nonsensical. Like if he wants to get that job, like it makes no sense for him to not be like, okay, let's go to your office and sit down. Like what?
Well, okay, and
wow.
So
she's really reining him in there, like.
And in full disclosure, I teach an interviewing class, and I have a senior level capstone class where they do interviews, and that's been happening a lot in the last couple of weeks where they've done the employment interview section of the class. And I'm just like, maybe I'm just a little bit too much into it, but I'm like, no. I would have been like, I've heard enough. Like, I would just be like, nope, I'm all set. So now I'm like, next time I teach the interviewing class, I'm bringing that clip from that movie in to be like, what do you think about this? Do you think you're going to get a job if you act like this? Just because you're handsome with a twinkle in your eye doesn't mean you're going to get the job. You've gone rogue, buddy. Like,
yeah. I would have been like, okay. I would have been like, okay, Maverick, this is not Top Gun here. Like,
oh my God. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, this isn't Kelly McGillis. She wouldn't have any of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really funny. And I like this guy, I mean, I don't think that he would get any jobs anywhere, but he seems to be able to charm his way into employment wherever he goes. So
he just thinks like with a smile and a wink of the eye that he's just going to get all these things. And I'm like, you're attractive, but like you need to have several seats right now because like that's not the only thing that is needed nor wanted or respected in this society. And it's almost like there's already, I think we have a stereotype. I'm not saying everyone, but I do think there's a stereotype that attractive people are considered to be like cocky or snobby. And I was like, why don't you stop trying to perpetuate that stereotype by just assuming whatever you do is fine and that you're going to get by on your, super awesome flying skills. Like you didn't even get that far. She doesn't know anything about you. And then it isn't until later when she discovers that, because she sends him away the first time. And I was like, stay strong, Lizzie, stay strong. She sends him away. And then her one friend from the workplace is like, well, he's been in the military. And that's when she's like, oh, okay. I'm like, you didn't even get that far. Like start off with your strengths,
Well, I mean, I feel like the pieces didn't quite add up completely because if he's in the military and he's super commitment phobe and super kind of estranged from his dad and everything, like I was expecting him to have some PTSD kind of thing or there was some reason, but there was never really given a reason. He's just kind of a punk and he wants to be Maverick from Top Gun.
Yeah, it's like, so what about it? Like, did it come from your childhood? Is it just simply, well, not simply, but is it your personality? Like, because Walter seems like a very nice, loving man that clearly was upset. And I think the times when they were trying to communicate, and I do think like Charlie was trying to communicate with his dad and his dad kind of shut it down. You could see some sadness there on both ends, right? Like that it wasn't until the end, if I can say this yet, is when Walter's like, but I lost my wife. And then Charlie's like, but I lost my mom. And so they both lost them, but I don't think they had seen it that way previously. And so I just don't know. I was like, it sounds like Walter had a wonderful relationship with his wife and I mean, I'm not saying like, obviously, just because they have a nice house doesn't mean anything, but it just seemed like a nice place to be. I was like, what happened, Charlie? Like, who hurt you? Like, tell us more. But that also might be the Lifetime person in me. Like,
well, no, so they were estranged because Walter didn't tell Charlie about
mom
the
being sick.
sickness of the
Yeah.
mother. And so he was very upset about that, which is like a pretty big thing to not tell your child, but then also like should be slightly more invested in his parents to have realized that she was getting sick at least a little bit. I would think he would have some idea, but they hadn't even scattered her ashes. Anyway, it was just a mess between the two of them.
I had forgotten about that. So thanks for the reminder. And that is something that I think happens a lot. Like, I think parents think that they're protecting their children and from not sharing information when they definitely need to know the information. And I think that is almost like, you don't believe I can handle knowing that my mom is sick. And it's like, even if I have a difficult time, I still have the right to know that my mom is sick. But also, maybe you should give your mom a call, Charlie. Like, pick up the phone.
That's right. Maybe visit her every now and then. Yeah, but I did think it was really fun when she's like, "Who's that? Who's that out in the plane, the seaplane, or whatever they're called?" Yeah. And then he's like with his like sunglasses on. It's like, I don't know, that was really fun. I'm like, oh, it's the same guy.
Yeah, I was like, and I don't know, I didn't see that coming until like that very moment. And I was like, come on, Alysa, you didn't see that coming like a mile away.
And I thought they had decent chemistry between the two of them.
Yeah.
Nikki DeLoach and Jeff Hepner. I thought they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think that's been one of, like, when I watch Hallmark movies, I'm like, would I place the two of you together in terms of relationship? But overall, I mean, the cookie crawl one was A++++.
Yeah,
for real. So that is my standard, is the cookie crawl couple, which I don't remember their names, but that
Daniel Panabaker. I can't remember the guy's name, but yeah.
He was handsome too. Okay.
He was.
So I think the chemistry is important, and I was very pleased with theirs.
Yeah.
I still question several things, like why, like, again, I think I've said this 3 times, so clearly it like really stuck a crush with me. But you went to his house to talk about business. You pick up the phone and be like, I need to see you in my office. Like, so I think
she was there. She was there for the tea party.
No, there was another time when she went to the house to talk to him about something.
Oh, was there? Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, I could have called, and this could have been a phone call. This is like having a meeting that could have been an email. Right?
Well, I mean, that's classic. That's classic television for you. That you'll always have people. First of all, usually in a sitcom, people just walk through the doors of people's houses, and you're like, "What's going on? Like, why?"
Lock your doors.
Yeah.
Sorry. Again, Lifetime Alysa says, "Lock your doors."
And so, what did you think about this whole organ delivery situation? So there's this horrible storm. If they get the organ, I guess it was kidneys, I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Then they'll be able to do the surgery and be able to save this person. And so there's sort of 2 sides to the story. His side is, you hired me to do these high risk deliveries. That's why you hired me.
Yeah.
And he knows he can do it. He's 100% confident. But then from her perspective is that it could ruin the helicopter. It could crash into the building. It could endanger a lot of people's lives. And so she tells him, no, do not go through the storm. Do not do it. And he's like, I'm going to do it. And so he then goes ahead and does it. And he does it safely, even though it's pretty shady there for a second. That helicopter gets moved around pretty good. I was like, what? But he does land it, and they're able to do the surgery. And then she says to him, that was the most selfish act I have ever seen in my life. So what do you think? Do you think that was selfish, or do you see his point, or where do you land on the organ delivery?
I have a foot on both sides of the line, if you will. One,
Yeah.
he is Charlie Rogue. So I think that sometimes his decision making is a little faulty because I think he's almost too confident. And I think, though, to do high risk things, you need to have that. However, if it had gone wrong, oh my goodness, I can only imagine the amount of lawsuits, right, that would
Yeah.
have occurred. And the other thing is, I guess if she makes the call and says no, or like 5 people are like, don't do it, and he does it, I do understand why she fired him, because you've been given an order, a direct order per se. And I think in this situation, it was about safety, and it's not like a direct order where they're doing something unethical. Like in that case, like don't follow those, demands, right? But in that sense, like it was about safety, she didn't want anything to happen to him. But I don't think, okay, this is where it gets tricky, because I do think he's like overconfident, so he can make maybe some poor decision making. However, I think he knew that he was doing it because it would save a person and it would help the hospital. And I think he was ultimately doing it for her, which can also be problematic decision making. It's about the patient and saving a life, then I don't think it's selfish at all. However, Charlie Rogue.
I mean, he was 100% confident that he could do it.
But I think he would have been 100% confident if there had been a tornado, and I don't think a tornado would have been like the tornado would have been like, bro, I don't think this.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna win this one, right? So it's like, what would have been the line for him? Would it have been a tornado? Would it have been a hurricane? I don't remember where they were located. North Carolina. Isn't it usually North Carolina?
It was filmed in Georgia, but I'm not sure where the movie is supposed to take place.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts. What about you?
I don't think it was the most selfish act ever.
No, not at all.
But he definitely was being a punk.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. There's a line.
Yeah.
But in the end, he did it. And so it's hard to argue with him in the end. You kind of, it's one of those outcome things. I don't blame her, I guess, for firing him. I mean, from the very beginning, I was like, why did she hire him? This is truly the only pilot in the entire, wherever this is the only helicopter pilot in anywhere. But whatever. I mean, it's kind of like that old story of the Native American warrior who picks up the snake and then takes him up the mountain, and then the snake bites him.
Yeah.
He says, why did you bite me? I just took you up the mountain. And the snake says, you knew what I was when you picked me up. And
she knew he was Charlie Rogue.
She knew what he was when he picked him up. So there you go. What are you going to do?
Excellent. What is it called? What did you say it was?
Parable?
Okay. It was from Native American culture, though. Is that what you said?
I guess. I don't know.
Okay. I love it. That is such a great point, because it's like, I mean, I don't even know if they fully got through a full interview to really know. And I would also think that he would have to do some flying to demonstrate what he can do. Not that she was going to get up there and fly with him because she was afraid of heights. But yeah, to me, I'm like, the thing about going, well, it's hard to argue after the fact, but if it had been a different outcome, then it's like, and so that's the thing, is you can't ever guarantee what the outcome is going to be. And so in some cases you do have to draw the line, right?
I mean, that's medicine in general, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's never a guarantee of the outcome.
Yeah.
Especially
according to Grey's Anatomy, yeah. I mean,
well, there were probably
is a risk.
Well, there would probably be a co-pilot as well of some kind helping make the decision, I would think. But anyway, it was a thing that happened, and it was pretty exciting. And so
that weather, I think, also indicated big budget.
Yeah, no, for sure.
There was a storm.
There's no doubt about it. And it wasn't just like some green screen terribleness. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
And so what did you think about the whole sort of plot line with the music also? Like, I did kind of laugh that they picked Heart and Soul because I feel like Heart and Soul is the song that anyone who has ever been around a piano knows how to play Heart and Soul. Like,
Anyone
even if you
who's
don't know how to
watched
play
the movie
anything else,
Big,
you don't know any other notes, you know Heart and Soul.
if you've seen Tom Hanks in Big, you're like, I got that.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I also was like, so there's this big buildup for music, and I really appreciated that it helped develop Walter and Quinn's friendship and it started to really pull Walter out of, for lack of a better word, the funk that he was sort of in, because he was pulling out sheet music. He wanted to teach her how to read it and all this kind of stuff. But then all the buildup, and I swear the song is like 20 seconds long. And I was like, that's it? That's all we got. We didn't have a budget for a full scene, or
well, because also that was his wife's piano in his house, and so it was. Yeah, they could have had it be longer, but maybe there's copyrights or something. I don't know. We only got like 20 seconds of Heart and Soul, but it was really like, cute.
Let's try a harder song. Let me teach you this other song. I don't know. Like,
I could even see the Barbara Niven character, the piano teacher.
Yeah,
I could see her and Walter.
I thought that was going to happen. I truly did. I thought, because even when I saw the preview for this movie, I was like, I really enjoyed even just listening to how they presented it, because they talked about friendship and they talked about how everyone needs connection with like the little clips they got from the show. And I was like, okay, that lady and that guy, this happening.
Really
and
cute.
Nothing. And I was like, what? Why not? What's happening?
In the Love Takes Flight sequel, we wanted to be focused on Barbara Niven and Tom Thomas characters falling in love.
Front row for me. Front row.
Agreed.
Watching that. Loving it.
It was just so cute, though. I mean, I could have watched them play together, Quinn and Walter, all day long. It was so cute. And then the fact her dad came was adorable.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, Quinn's going to be all right. She's yay.
Well, it also is, I think, a really important moment in the movie is that when, her teacher can't be there for the recital, and that Walter, who's sort of been afraid to play the piano, but is willing to teach her how to play sheet music, or he's going to come to the recital. But the fact that he's like, I'm going to play with you, and then he does it, I think is very important to sort of a shift in Walter's world. And that's why I think all sorts of different kinds of friendships are critical. I don't know that Charlie Rowe could have got him there, and Lizzie's definitely not, because I feel like she's like, yeah, we can go over to Walter's, and then she's like talking to Charlie Rowe, and it's like, who knows what's going on elsewhere? Like,
I mean, let's be fair. He's very distracting. I would be distracted.
Okay, I'll give you that.
The one thing I think that maybe sometimes is hurt by these shorter TV movies, they just don't have the time. But I really wish we'd gotten one more scene between Charlie and Lizzie, because basically they have their argument, and he gets fired.
Yep.
Yeah. And then he's going to leave, and she comes running, whatever, and Walter's with the big arms and
that was
flailing him down and everything. And then they have their super romantic, great moment at the end. Yeah. But I really wish we'd had one more scene in between there where maybe he had tried to explain his point of view, or there'd been something, but it's just a question of time, I think, with these. But I don't know, would have been nice, I think. Because she goes from annoyed. She goes from being annoyed to in love really quick.
I feel like there needs to be another moment of at least of more tension where they have to come together somehow, and maybe not happy about it, but then like someone does or says something and the other person's like, it kind of warms their heart just a little bit, like, oh, okay. But yeah, I agree. I felt like from firing to like kissing in his, it's not even a backyard. It's like a...
Yeah. What do you call it?
The side of a lake.
Yeah, lakeside property or something.
Like, I mean, that house was gorgeous.
Yeah,
Like,
it was.
beautiful. Loved it. But yeah, I definitely felt like because he's leaving for Alaska, and I'm like, how do you know? Are you on his Facebook? Like, there was like, how did she find that out? Like, so I think if there would have been 3 more minutes between firing and the end, a lot of that could have come together. And maybe that's why Heart and Souls is so fast, is because they're like, we gotta make this happen.
Yeah. But it was a pretty good ending kiss, I thought. You know, it was sort of one of those shut up and kiss me moments, which I really enjoy. It's like,
I thought it was good. I was really pleased. Like, I liked it. I think, here's the thing. Maybe Walter didn't need to spend 2 minutes waving him down from the plane as he was leaving to bring Charlie Rogue back to Lizzie. We could have got some more tension somewhere else. But I thought that was really cute. Like, no, really don't leave. And then he's like, oh gosh, what's happening with my father? You know?
Yeah. And she's like, wait, are you gonna, she's like, what, you know, you're so frustrating. You're terrible, but I just keep thinking about you. It was a really, really classic rom-com speech.
Yeah.
And then he just goes for it. And it was great. That was really fun.
Yeah. I did enjoy it from beginning to end. You know, but it could have probably used a few more minutes to sort of create that climax and to get to a resolution. Yeah,
but it was just a sweet little movie. I just left feeling, oh, that was so sweet. I can't think of another way to describe it.
Well, and I think you're probably thinking that because there was a lot of friendship in there, and
that's right.
How often does that happen?
So how many crowns out of 5 would you give this one?
Ooh, I would give it a good solid 4 if they added in the 3 more minutes and a puppy. I'd probably go 4.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty close. I was going to get 3.75 crowns.
Oh yeah, I forgot I can do very specific point numbers here. But yeah, I can round up to 4.
Okay, good. Very good. And I have it at number 7 in my ranking for this year. I have it just after True Love Blooms, which was very dishy. You would really enjoy it. And just before Winter Love Story. So there you go. If people want to find your podcast and stuff, where can people find you?
I'm on all the usual podcatchers. So your favorite podcatchers. You can usually type in Best Forever's Pod and it comes up, but the full name is Best Forever's, a podcast for kindred spirits. And then I'm Best Forever's Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and I almost said and social media, but how about and Twitter? And I'm actually updating my webpage, so I would say in about 2 weeks it'll look really good. But I actually got the domain for my full name, and it's Alysa Lucas, Alysa, and so all stuff friendship will be located there.
Great. And we'll have all that in the description section. Yeah. And you can find us at Hallmarkies Pod, all of our social media and on iTunes and YouTube. And we have a new Patreon set up, which we're really excited about. And it's a way that you can support not only Hallmarkies Podcast, but Rachel's Reviews, which is my other podcast, and Amy Lynn Craig's YouTube channel as well. We're all going to be putting out, we have early content that you can get there, that you can have our When Calls the Heart episode 3 recap that we have that you can get almost a week early than any other listeners, and it's only costs $2 is the lowest tier every month to become a patron. And we have a secret Facebook group that if you become a patron with only $5, you can be in the Facebook group. So we're really excited about it, and it's obviously not required to listen to the podcast, but if you have the means and you want to contribute, we would really love it. So we're really excited about that.
So I can get in this secret group.
I know. Yes, it's pretty epic, the secret group. So $5 on Patreon. I'll have the link in the description section. Please check it out. We would be so grateful. So there you go. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media and on iTunes and YouTube and Rotten Tomatoes. And so that's a lot of fun. And fun. Thank you so much, Lisa. This was great. I had a great
Always.
time talking with you about this movie. And let us know your thoughts about the movie. Did you like it, not like it? Where does this stand for you as far as recent Hallmark Hall of Fame films? We both enjoyed it. And so let us know, and we will talk about it. And so thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.
Bye.